So for everyone who's just joining us now, we will leave some time at the end for some questions from you. So please add them to the Q&A, and you can also upvote them as we're speaking. So there should be time for about 2 or 3 questions, just depending on how in-depth they are. So let's get started. I'm very excited to have our 2 guests today. We have Faye Stirling with us, the Executive Assistant for Mike Cannon-Brookes, and Gisele Karame-Kemp, the EA to Scott Farquhar, the 2 co-founders and co-CEOs of Atlassian. So today we're going to dive into the world of EAs with our 2 guests. We will cover dispelling the myths around EAs, how to hire the right EA for your business, how EAs can supercharge a founder, and the benefits of an EA for your company. Before we jump into the questions, I thought it'd be nice to get to know our guests a little bit more. So prior to Atlassian, Faye worked in the property industry, supporting the CEO of a listed fund. She has over 15 years experience spanning logistics planning, executive event coordination, and team management. And I love this bit. Faye's superpower is looking around the corners for the executives that she supports. Pretty good superpower. And before Atlassian, Gisele was the EA to Lachlan Murdoch. She's worked at Westfield Group, a brand agency, for a private entrepreneur in the UAE, the University of Sydney. She has a degree in economics from Sydney University, and her superpower is staying ridiculously calm in crisis. So it's safe to say we're in good hands today, very experienced people. So let's jump in. We'll start with a bit of background on just what do EAs do. So Faye, we'll start with an easy one for you. Okay. What is the role of an EA, and how might it differ to people's perception of the role of an EA?
Well, that's a great question, Danny. There's actually a hangover from the 50s that an EA is like a secretary, but it's not like that anymore. Today, we are strategic partners to our executives. We need to have the context, the understanding, the communication skills, and the relationships to partner and optimize with our executive. It takes a lot of trust on both sides, and this does not happen overnight. People think EAs are not motivated for growth. It's a negative perception that needs to be dispelled. We are absolutely motivated and hungry, just like other direct reports that want opportunities. That's not to say we all want to grow out of the EA role, but we want to be given opportunities to challenge, develop, and hone our craft. Actually, when I interviewed with Mike, he asked me what I wanted to do in 5 years' time. And I thought, oh, damn it. He wants me to say I want to be head of HR or something like that to demonstrate drive and desire to grow. But I decided to tell the truth. I said, I want to be an EA, the best EA I can be. What I didn't know is Mike was looking for the same thing. He wanted the expert EA. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying is it okay to move out of the EA role. I'm just saying we can be hungry to learn and grow in an EA role for the rest of our lives as well. The best companies and best leaders will hold on to EAs by creating opportunities. There is a perception, it's hard to find a good EA. But if you do not motivate the good ones, give them stretch goals like you would do for any direct report, you will lose them to other companies. By creating opportunities, building trust, and seeing an EA as a strategic partner in your day-to-day operations, you will reap the rewards. I hope you will hear this and implement it so we can elevate the role and attract other people to our industry who bring new thinking and ideas, like men, for example.
Yes, that's a good one. Do you have any idea of what the split would be of EAs, male EAs to female EAs?
I don't have the exact details, but I feel confident to say it's probably 90-10. And I would say that Atlassian is very lucky to have some of the best male EAs in the business in Sydney, USA, and Manila. Shout out to all our male colleagues.
Love it. So Gisele, we'll move on to you. For those on the call considering hiring an EA, can you tell us why this would be a good investment?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, EAs can do so many things, and where they focus their time will depend on what's of most value to you and to your business. So, calendar management, scheduling meetings, arranging your travel and helping you get the most from your trips, planning and executing events, managing projects, creating presentations for you, writing speeches, researching your customers, managing budgets and financial reporting. Importantly, EAs can bridge the gap between you and your staff. They often have high emotional intelligence, so pick up on things that others don't. In meetings where you're focused on the topic at hand, they can read a room and, sense if a member of your staff is at risk of leaving. They'll hear about teams that are in distress because of an incompetent manager. We're privy to things that don't reach you and others that shouldn't. And we can bring those, bring some to your attention, deal with others for you, make sure you're not aware of other things that are going on. So we can really be your eyes and ears within the business. EAs are often key to bringing the team together and building staff morale. Then of course there's all the general administration that they can take from your plate. If you're in back-to-back meetings, they'll make sure you have something for lunch. And that obscure thing that you heard about that sounded cool, that you're not really sure actually exists, mention it to your EA and they'll find it, order it, get it delivered to you the next day. And with a great EA, you'll never turn up at the airport with a passport that's about to expire and you can't get on that flight. But more importantly, I'd ask everyone watching, what's your most valuable resource? And I'd say it's your time. It's the one thing you can't buy or make more of. And so an EA can help you get the most of your time. So we do that by really taking charge of your calendar, scheduling meetings in a way that make the best use of your time. We can vet requests that, make sure, to ensure that you're not in meetings that could be handled by someone else on your team, and, not in meetings that shouldn't happen at all. We can free up your time to do deep work that's of real value and ensure you're not interrupted during that time. Perhaps you find you're at your best when you exercise first thing in the morning, then do deep work, and then take meetings in the afternoon. Well, your EA can make that happen. Or, during COVID restrictions, you realise that dinner with your family makes everything worthwhile and really feeds your soul. So, your EA can make sure that that family time is protected and you never miss out on dinner with your family again. But then we can also take it to the next level by tracking where exactly you're spending your time. And if you're spending your time on things that aren't aligned with your current priorities, this process really makes it glaringly obvious. Share your priorities with your EA and they'll keep you on track with the meetings that are scheduled and the emails that you see first. And, they'll stop you spending time on the things that you haven't identified as a priority. An example of something that's really worked for Scott is a rolling annual planner that I created that gives us a bird's eye view of his year. We refer to it constantly, and particularly when considering his travel and speaking invites that come in around the world, when to take time off with family that makes the most sense for his family and for the business. And he's shared it with other CEOs who use it to plan their year. And our own work futurist on Price uses it to manage his speaking commitments across the globe. And he said it's been really invaluable to him too. But then, also think about how do you get the most from your meetings. So EAs can source the materials you need ahead of a meeting. And then they can also ensure that others are prepared for meetings with you so that your time isn't wasted. Then have your EA join your meetings and not just to take minutes. They'll benefit from the information that's shared in the room. Have them participate where possible, and they can provide another point of view that perhaps hasn't been considered by others in the room. They can take action items, delegate those actions, and then follow up and make sure they're delivered. And I think emails are probably a pain point for most people listening. EAs can and should manage your emails. In the wise words of Ashton Kutcher, your inbox is someone else's to-do list for you. So, really you should let go of your emails and let your EA take care of them, and they'll ensure that you see what's important first. You don't see what you don't need to. Emails are redirected to others in your organisation that can deal with them. Your EA will respond on your behalf where possible, and then they can also draft responses for you. And then
I think
finally,
on that point alone, everyone's going to be very excited about getting an EA.
And then finally, one thing I want to mention that I've said to other CEOs and founders in the past, and it's really resonated with them: the more successful that you become, the fewer the people there will be around you who will tell you the truth and not just what you want to hear. So if you give us permission, and sometimes even if you don't, your EA will do this. But ultimately, they're on your side and likely to be the most loyal person to you outside of your family. And so I think all of that I've mentioned, you know, isn't just of value to you, but to your team and to your organization.
Wow. I mean, if you weren't sold on having an EA already, then you definitely are now. So Faye, I'll take it over to you. How do you work with your EA to get the most out of them? Because it sounds like there's a lot going on. Have a lot on their plate. It's really, in some ways, up to you as the employer to make sure you're getting the most out of that relationship, especially at the beginning, and to make sure that you're getting the value out of your EA.
Correct. What you said there, actually, when you say it's one of the responsibilities of the employer to get the most out. I would call out, there are a lot of leaders who've never had an EA before and they don't know how to use an EA properly, and that's okay. But then I would consider, you'll hear about further on, looking at hiring at least one EA who can teach you how to use them. But Gisele will bring that up later on, I'm sure. So I'll get to some tactics of what has worked well for Mike and I. But firstly, what I would say is an EA role with you is like no other role that you'll have in your organization. You need to add a little bit of vulnerability to it, I would say. When I first started with Mike, we sat down and we discussed both of our weaknesses and strengths in a working relationship. And I think this is imperative to the success of the role. So how that plays out is, now I know where Mike is weakest, so in a certain situation, and I can adjust for that, and I can catch him and help him through that environment. And in regards to my weaknesses, well, I'd like to think that I have none, but at least he knows the limitations. But anyway, getting to the tactics. So what we started off with, this is one of the best things that I loved when we started, is he taught me about the decision tree. And I don't know if you've ever used it or heard of it before, but basically there's like a tree, a leaf, branch, trunk, and roots, and that's how you make decisions. A leaf decision is a decision made without Mike's knowledge. Stuff just gets done and things keep moving. A branch decision is a decision made by me, but I give Mike an FYI, e.g. a thank you gift. You know, he doesn't want to find out that he sent a gift embarrassingly and he didn't know, etc. Trunk, I prepare the solutions and even a recommendation, and then Mike will make the final decision. Roots, I don't even touch the decision. I bring the issue straight to him immediately, as quick as possible, and no action is done by me until Mike has given me the go-ahead or told me what to do. And over time, we've worked together to grow the leaf and branch option. So now that I can take more off his plate, but it's a great structure to begin with, to set out your guidelines of how you want things done. And this also helps so no critical mistakes happen in the beginning, which is something that you just don't want. The other thing I would say is context. Don't underestimate context. Gisele's touched on it earlier in what she said, but involve your EA in as many meetings as you can. I learned at an exponential level watching Mike interact and react to information, and every meeting my goal was to understand what was important for Mike to know, to understand, and to focus on. It also meant that I learned about the business pretty quickly. Perfection is one of the other things that I think I would call out. EA's role has an unspoken KPI, and it's perfection. We are human, so it's impossible, but we have to get as close as we can. Which will go to saying that how a great EA, you don't know, like your day is perfect. That's the perfection element to this whole thing. To do this, I use a decision matrix. and I work out what is completely unacceptable to drop and has to be perfect, and everything else I seek people out who can help me automate the task. So I think those would be the top 3 tactics.
No pressure. Perfection.
Yeah, no pressure at all.
So I'll ask both of you this question. What do you look for in your partnership with the leader or person that you support?
I'll go first. From day one, Mike's attitude towards me was Faye is doing her best work. That he understood that was my intent, and it gave me freedom and power to not prove myself to him, but actually concentrate on really doing my best work. So that is something that I look for in a partnership. Secondly, I think I excel at my role because Mike allows me to seek out new challenges, and he provides me the psychological safety. I know that's a buzzword, a buzz term, but it's absolutely true. So that if I mess up, it's okay. He knows I'm doing my best.
And then,
Sorry.
no, that's okay. We can move on.
I'm sorry. I just lost my place for a second. So for me, I was thinking about this and how it's kind of changed for me over the years. I think early on, it was probably just money that I was motivated by, and I could figure out how to work with a leader. But I think now that I've been doing this for a long time, it really comes down to trust and openness. This really does feel like a partnership with Scott, and that's what makes what I do so satisfying. Scott has asked me for my input from day one, and that's allowed me to do the best work in my career so far. I give him my opinion, even when that's in contrast to his. He takes my recommendations on things. He trusts me to make decisions on his behalf, and that trust means that I know when it's okay to make a call and when I should seek his advice. And, he continually challenges me to learn and to take on more, and it's really rewarding.
If we have an EA on the call who is just starting out her career, that might feel quite scary to think about, offering their opinion. Can you just offer some quick advice of how they can kind of build up to that? Offering an opinion when it's in contrast to their CEO.
And when I think back to, my early days, I absolutely didn't put my opinion forward. I think, people have varying levels of confidence, and, I think it's really important as an EA to learn to make mistakes when you're starting out, because that's when you make those mistakes and you'll never make them again. So really learn from your mistakes. But it's important for EAs to trust their judgment. We're not just secretaries. We're not meant to be, seen but not heard. We have a valued opinion. We bring a whole different point of view to what's going on. So, hopefully you have a leader who will value that, but speak up and put yourself out there. And even if it's not taken on board, it's all part of the learning process, I think.
Can I say one thing, Jenny? When I joined meetings, I decided to challenge myself that I wouldn't sit there passively. I would, in my head, it all started in my head first. I would give my opinion to the situation in my head. And I grew confidence through, usually I was like, wow, I was pretty close, or I was similar, or I was the same as that leader. And then one time I remember being in an offsite and I was like, today's the day I'm going to give my verbal opinion to the room. So that's how I would suggest you start. It is hard and it is scary, but when you work with good people, you'll find that they don't even notice. And you're like, guys, I just did my first opinion. They're just thinking,
I think that's good advice to maybe anyone starting out with their careers. So just a follow-on question from that, what are some of the qualities of a really great EA, Gisele?
Yeah. Faye touched on this, but great EAs want to understand why you need something done, not just what. So don't give them a task. Give them the issue at hand and they'll find a solution. The more information you share, the more context you provide, the more a great EA will do with that. And then the more they'll be able to make the decision that you would make without you having to have any input at all. Great EAs are solutions focused. They don't come to you with problems alone, if they do need to come to you, but with solutions too, and we're problem solvers. So for everything you see that your EA has done, there are probably 50 other things that they've done that you have no idea about, and nor should you. The mark of a really great EA is that, they don't really seem busy. You're not quite sure what it is that they're doing, but everything is seamless and runs smoothly. And so then you can, be sure that they're doing a great job. I've mentioned it, but they own their mistakes, they fix them, and they learn from them so that they don't make them twice. Because, no one wants excuses when things go wrong. You just want someone who's going to get into action, own it, and fix it. And, really importantly, this job is all about relationships, and great EAs build genuine relationships with those around them, not just with you, but with your team, with people throughout the business, with other EAs, with stakeholders, customers, even the cleaning staff. We really need to lean on others to get things done, and so genuine relationships are key to that. I'd say that on the flip side, beware of EAs who have an ego, or those who manage up and kick down. So they treat you like a god, but it's quite different to your team or to those below you. They can really be toxic for your team, and even if they're getting things done for you, it eventually catches up to them. Remember that your EA is a reflection of you, so find one with the same values as you.
That's really good advice. And so when it comes to hiring an EA, Faye, where can we look to find the best talent pool?
Well, got some bad news.
Oh.
There's no secret pool.
Are you sure?
Yeah, unfortunately not. It's the sad truth. So what I would say is hire slowly and don't rush. If you can, hire using internal recruitment teams, because usually the EAs that apply for those roles who are using the internal recruitment team already have jobs and are okay with a slower process. There's no panic behind it. Whereas my experience with recruitment agents, that EAs applying for roles usually don't have a job. And so that they're pushing for you to take them, which affects your decision making. Next thing I would call out is if you make a mistake in your hiring, which you should be spending the 6 months actively pushing your EA, giving feedback, testing your EA, looking for the things, to find out how good they are. But if you find that you made a mistake, fire fast. We've done that, and it's the best decision that we've ever made. It's better to start again and have no EA because you know what is being dropped, then have a bad EA and live in fear of not knowing when your world is about to blow up. Like example, when you're about to get on a flight or in the middle of an important meeting.
So Faye, is there, could you potentially ask someone else's experienced EA to help with recommendations, or is there anything sort of practically that you could do to try and find this amazing person?
Well, I was going to say, Gisele and I, we are really passionate about improving our industry and having brilliant EAs, and we always love helping other CEOs find the best EA. I particularly love interviewing EAs, etc. And Gisele has a great interview process as well. So I'm scared to say because I don't know what our inbox is going to look like, but we'd be more than happy to help in to a certain point, obviously. But yeah, you can ask if you know a good EA, I would ask them to help you. Yes, that's the short answer.
Love it. You might need an EA to triage your emails after this.
I would just add to that. Sydney's a small place. Most people are signed in from Sydney, and so EAs, get to know one another, and so if you know EAs, talk to them. Of course, you can talk to us. And get a sense of what that person is like to work with. There are a few good EA recruiters out there who keep in touch with EAs in the industry, and so, you know, we'll reach out to ones who are already in jobs to see if they might be interested about a great opportunity. And that method that I use when interviewing, Scott got me onto. It's a book called The Who Method of Hiring, and it uses a very in-depth. It's simple but in-depth technique that you should probably use for, you know, hiring anyone in your business, but also use for EAs. Don't think that, you know, this role doesn't require the same level of scrutiny. And, you know, it's really, really fantastic method that I use and paints a really good picture of candidates. And then the other thing I just wanted to add was, you know, that it does take time to learn the person you're working with. So, you know, don't be afraid if, you know, 2 months in, they're still, you know, your EA is still asking lots of questions. There's a learning curve. It sort of takes a good 3 to 4 months to settle into a role. And then it was probably about a year for me before I found, oh, hang on, I know what Scott will do in this situation. I can make that decision on his behalf. So give it time, give them context, give them information, and that helps with with them finding their feet.
I love questions.
Yes. Sorry, Faye.
I'd say I love questions in an EA. I think that's a really good indicator that you've got a good one.
Yeah.
Trying to learn quickly.
So this kind of follows on from that answer, but, you know, because the role it's so subjective to the company, the role requirements and the individual leader, how do you hire for this uniqueness?
Well, there's a standard growth path that all of us go on. And then after that, it's only natural that EAs all have different experiences because we all work in different industries. And this is a strength. It means that we are super adaptable, and it's actually one of our hidden superpowers because we bring across unique skills. For example, when I was in the property industry, it taught me how to project manage. So I brought that to the next role that I'm in. I'm in the tech industry now, where we have project managers, but I wouldn't have learned that if I had started in the tech industry. So after you need to be someone who matches you and your values, exactly what Gisele said, we're like so in line, has the right attitude, is smart, is a strategic and critical thinker, and finally has an insatiable desire to learn. And this can span across any industry. So don't pigeonhole your hiring to one industry. And I just come back to the right attitude because it is so important. It's extremely important to have a team mentality. Yes, they are supporting you, but the team may need help, for example, which, you know, leads up to helping you in instances. Mm-hmm. And it's a get it done attitude. It's no task too small type thing. That's one thing I'd call out about the attitude.
And Gisele, what can a leader expect to pay an EA's salary?
Okay, so there isn't a simple answer to this. There are huge variances in the EA market, and there are EA recruiters who have real data on this. But very generally speaking, because I'm sure people want ballpark figures, a starting salary is around $80,000 for an EA, but they will have limited experience. If you want someone who will hit the ground running, think about $100,000 to $120,000 mark. If you want someone senior who will teach you how to use them, I'd say the range would start at $130,000 through to $180,000, and then really the sky's the limit because the really exceptional EAs don't change their jobs frequently, and they are valued by their leaders, and so are incentivized to stay. And so that's just speaking about base salaries, not other benefits like bonus and equity. If that's not something that someone can think about right now, then there are also team assistants that and they can support multiple people on the team, or perhaps a junior EA role. Someone who's just starting out, and their salaries would start around the $60,000 mark. But I just want to quantify all of that So, you know, consider an exec whose total comp package is $1 million and their assistant earns $80,000. For the organisation to break even, that EA needs to make that executive 8% more productive. And, you know, with everything we've talked about that an EA can do, you know, really saving your time, directing your attention to the things of most value, freeing you up for deep work, well, you know, you hit that 8%, you know, in no time, and then, you know, the value is...
Yeah, it's reached.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it. So before we move on to our audience questions, I just have one final question for you. We all have to know, what's it like working for two of Australia's most successful founders and CEOs?
I'll let you go first, Gisele.
Okay. Well, I think I speak for both Faye and I when I say we've both found our dream jobs.
Yes,
You know, we get insight into two of the great minds of our time. I get to influence one of them, and I don't think many people can say that. But that's not a power trip. You know, it's genuinely fascinating to work with Scott. And as I've said, I feel like I'm doing my best work. A few years ago, I never would have thought I'd be asked for my opinion on being an EA by founders and CEO, and this is actually the second time that I'm doing it. The first was when Scott put me on the spot, and you know, it's not always easy, but it's absolutely rewarding. And I've been lucky enough to build our team. So I'm not the only one helping Scott achieve his goals. So special shout out to Kelly and Belle, who also make the magic happen.
Awesome.
I would echo everything that Gisele has said, but for Mike. So I've got a little bit of a funny story. I thought after the first year of working with Mike, I thought, okay, great, I know how everything's going to work. I know what he likes. I know how the cadence of his work year is going to go. But I don't know if anybody has been following Mike. That has just been blown out of the water. Every single year is very different than each year. And now I've started by the beginning of the year, I get a group of people together. I'm like, let's try and guess what wonderful, interesting thing that Mike is going to do this year. And I'm really always very excited because it means I'm going to have some great learning opportunities. Mike is very generous with the opportunities that he provides me. Which I am so lucky. And that's actually one of the things that I love about my role. And finally, there is a myth that when Mike is on leave or traveling and I'm not with him, I don't have work to do. It is wrong. Mike is on, I am on. When Mike is off, I am still on. My work for Mike is bigger than just him. It's there's, going back to what Gisele said, there's so many things that are happening around to make him successful.
Awesome. So we actually have quite a lot of questions and they're all really great. So perhaps we can follow up after this and I might collect some more answers from you and I'll potentially post them as a blog for everyone. Okay. The first one is from Michael Fox. Do you think an EA needs to physically be co-located with the exec when they work together, or can the role be remote?
Well, I'll take the first part of that. 2 months ago, before COVID, I would have said absolutely yes. But now since COVID has started, and I'm kind of ashamed in the sense that I would have said that because I feel like that's an old school thinking. But since COVID has started, initially I was like, oh, how am I going to do this? But I've found different ways to work with Mike. And that's usually by asking people if I can join their meetings and listen into everything. And then as he's about to dial off, I quickly go, Mike. At first he used to get a fright because I would literally scream like a banshee to make sure he didn't dial off. But nowadays, I don't think it needs to be fully one-on-one, face-to-face. I do think there are benefits. So to being one-on-one, because you get those quick conversations out of the way. So there are lots of benefits, but as long as you acknowledge that, you can find workarounds.
Awesome. What kind of blockers have you had to overcome to become this confident and competent, from Dom Price?
So
it's a great question.
Look, I think you know, it's come with years of experience with working with different people. For me, in my last role, working for Lachlan, I began traveling with him, and that really brought me out of my shell. I was in cities where I didn't know people, and building those face-to-face relationships with people that I was normally only talking to on the phone or corresponding by email. That forced me to come out of my shell a little bit, work out how to really genuinely, I was very good at building relationships with people via email. That was quite easy for me, but, making conversation, going to events and making, small talk, that was a real challenge. So that, I think, helped me grow. Coming to Atlassian and, this incredible working environment where we're really encouraged to just be ourselves, to work open, to share opinions, to offer feedback. I think that's been a real turning point for me.
I would say my own head noise, because of the negative perception. And I won't lie, I've been in that era where it has been a negative perception of the EA. So I would say I'm just an EA. I can't give an opinion. But again, coming to Atlassian, which gives you an environment, they treat us all the same and they want to know because they view us as a different opinion.
Do you think having an EA work for two people works, and how does it work if you've had any experience there in terms of having the one-on-one relationships?
I've worked for more than one person and it can work, but I think you have to be very clear on the expectations of both people, because both people used going to sound weird, but used me differently. I worked differently with them. One really engaged with me and used me we worked together in a sense that was more impactful. The second person, the requirements that they need were limited. So it can work. I think you just have to be very clear on your expectations.
Yeah.
And then how the time's divided, perhaps?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's probably also going, working out what's the minimum that you're offering to both people. Like maybe one person has a terrible calendar and so you really need to focus your time, and then the other person doesn't. And, email is where the most value is. So, defining that for the two different people and saying, okay, these are the bare minimums of what I need to deliver for you. And then, keeping conversation flowing around, what's your capacity at the moment? Can you take this on? Because I think often EAs who are less confident or perhaps, only just starting out are afraid to ever say no. And that's probably one thing before I came to Atlassian, I never said no. And then, we kept saying yes. And then, the workload just got too much. And so, we had to have a conversation around, okay, what's really critical here? What do we have to deliver? What can wait? If there are any EAs listening, one of my favorite questions is, when do you need that by? Because rarely is anything as urgent as it might sound when someone is, talking about it. And when you ask them that question, it clarifies, okay, oh yeah, you're right. I just need it by the end of the week, even though it sounds like I need it this moment. So, that helps. So, communication is key in all of this.
I'd say Mike and Scott started out their EA journey sharing one person.
Okay.
Yeah.
So probably the question that a lot of us would like to know, what happens when you go on holidays?
I was actually thinking about that. I'm on holiday at the moment. The only time I'm truly not 100% on is on December. I think I'm always looking, I'm always checking, just because part of our role is, it's at the heart of it is a service. We're a service role, and I just want the best for Mike, and I want the best for the team, and I want the best for Atlassian. So we do have people who cover us, but I understand that they also want to do the best job for Mike, and that and they need my help as well to do that.
And so we both work quite differently, and because Scott and Mike are so different, and so Atlassian's the first place where I've actually been able to switch off when I've taken a break, and so I've taken actual holidays, and that was once we had another EA, Kelly, join the team, and I was able to go to Europe for a whole month and not work. That's very hard for EAs because this is a job where you kind of need to be on around the clock, but I think just set the expectations of, okay, while you're on leave, is it really important that you stay on top of emails? Like, can your exec survive without you for a week or for longer? Can another person in the business step up into your shoes and they only reach out to you if something really, really needs your attention? Because I think it's important that people do switch off and take a break and recharge and then come back fresh. So, I think EAs have had to work around the clock and have their phones, by their side and switched on during the night. And I don't think that's healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have time for one more question. So how does a senior EA work effectively with a newly appointed chief of staff? So they're still considered a business partner. And I think this is an interesting one because the chief of staff role is definitely on the rise. And I think there sounds like from today that there's a bit of crossover there sometimes. So how would you define those two roles, and how would those two roles work effectively together?
Yeah, so I gave this a bit of thought because I thought it might come up. So I think, a chief of staff is a very strategic role. They might be attending meetings on your behalf, keeping projects on track and moving forward, ensuring communication is flowing between all parties to successfully achieve your priorities and goals. And there's a lot of overlap there between a senior EA and a chief of staff. And so what would be a chief of staff in one company would be an EA in another. And for the two of them to work together, communication is key. It's sharing information. We often have different pieces of the puzzle, and so if we work closely together, we can make all of that seamless. Scott and Mike have an amazing chief of staff, Amy, and we work really closely with Amy. That's really key. I don't think you could, it's not going to work if those two roles don't collaborate and share information.
I was going to say that thing, that role is very important, that they work. It's imperative that it works, the EA and chief of staff.
Yeah, thanks so much. That's great. So we're going to let you off just a little bit early because I think everyone needs to get their Friday started. Thank you so much for joining us, Faye and Gisele. We really appreciate it. I hope everyone got a lot out of this discussion. We had quite a few Q&A questions come through. So what I might do is just catch up with you afterwards, and we can potentially put something together for everyone. And we'll be putting on more events like this throughout the year. So if you want to stay up to date with what we're doing, follow us on Twitter. It's BlackbirdBC. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great Friday.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.